After you have your first knot tied on to that very first warp on the left side, you're ready to start doing your weaving. So to do that, you just want to take the end of your yarn. We'll go over the first warp, then we'll go under the second one. We'll go over the next one, and we'll go under the last one. So you can see I went over, under, over, under. Then you just pull it through, and that first row is done. Now to start your next row is not going to be back over here again. Your next row stays on the same side that you just ended on. So if I ended on the right side, I'm going to start my next row on the right side. And if I ended with an under, I need to start with an over. So I'm going to do the same row. I'm going to go over, under, over, under, and pull it through. Now there's one thing I want to make sure when you're pulling your yarn through, make sure you're not pulling it too tight and you're getting your warp bent like that. We don't want our warp to get bent, because then eventually it's going to start getting really, really small. Your weaving's going to get really tiny. So try not to bend your warps. Try and keep them as straight as you can. So I'll just keep doing that. Every row you start weaving is always going to be the same. So every row for me, since I always end on an under, that means my next row is always going to start with an over. Now there's one thing I need to do as well while I'm weaving. You can see it's getting a little loose. What I need to do is I need to batten my yarn. I need to batten it. To batten my yarn, I need to use my fingers, put them down on the cardboard, push it up, and then make sure it's pushed up as high as you can. That'll do a couple things. That'll make sure that your weaving is really nice and tight, and it's nice and poofy too, so you've got all that yarn there, and it's not really spread out, but it's nice and pushed up there. It'll also make sure you have enough room to add more colors. It gives you a lot more room to add more colors and more pattern to your loom. So once we've got about a finger's length extra of yarn, so I'm going to do one more row here. Once I've got a finger's length extra, so about as long as my finger here, I'm ready to tie on my next color. Now, tying on our next color is going to be the exact same as when we tied on our first warp, the first knot on the first warp. All I want to do is I'm going to take my new color and I'm going to wrap it around my old color and make that loop. So, I've got my white, not wanting to stay, but my white goes around and makes a loop. And what we're going to do is take the back of that loop, or take that yarn and stick it through the back of the loop, and that will make the knot. Then to pull it tight, you just need to pull both sides of the new color. You don't want to pull the old color, you only want to pull the new color. So I'm only going to pull the white yarn here. And then it's nice and tight. Then if you want to snip off some extra, you can. Just don't cut too close to the knot, otherwise the knot can come undone. So that's probably plenty of extra left over. After your new color is tied on, then all you have to do is just continue weaving. Just act like you didn't even switch colors. Just start your next row, which if I ended on an under, again it's going to be over, under, over, under. It's the same pattern every single time. If you're finding out that you're starting with an under instead of starting with an over, then you'll have to go back and check your last row to see if everything's in the right place. Make sure you're not skipping a warp. Make sure you're not going over, under, over. You know, really want to make sure you're getting each row the same exact way, over, under, every single time. Now you can start to see that my white, as I'm weaving, my white is starting to show on my loom now as well. So now the red is all done. Now I'm onto my white color, and then I'll just keep on weaving that until I'm ready for my next color. Then we'll just repeat that same process. Tie on a new color, continue weaving, and we'll do that all the way to the end. And then once we get to the end, we're going to have a special way to take this off of our cardboard loom.